we fall by the wayside. When you are convincing some of the best and brightest, and these big firms are considered to be the best and brightest in our profession, when you convince the best and brightest, they must acquiesce to you, not because of principle, because you said so, and they say, okay, that's a problem. And it's a, and maybe because my firm is so small and I'm not dealing with $100 million contract, I can't actually see the forest for the trees. But it seems like we're going in the wrong direction, and it shows me in a way that I had seen before how weak our system is, and how the lawyers actually aren't looking to build and develop and expand, but it's a money grab. It's about money. If money's involved, morals and values and our
Right.
ethical obligations are changed with the win. We don't have obligations. If a person call you and say do this, you say okay. When you said something, do it. That means you had no ethics in the first place. If they weren't there, we gave the mask as it was there, but they weren't. And there are some firms who are pushing back. There's some firms like, yeah, no, we're gonna see you. Wilmer Hale was one of them. Perkins and Cole is another one. And the reality is, the firms that have sued have been prevailing, because the reality is the administration haven't done things legally. They've done a lot of things, but the law isn't how they base their decisions. So we have some of the best and brightest lawyers in the country, and some will say the world, and we have an administration who doesn't think about laws at all in anything they do. It seems like that'll be an easy way for them to go and fight back and prevail. Certainly, Pam Bondi may be an incredible lawyer. I don't know that from the things she said. I can't quite see that. The people he had in his administration, I can't quite see. So I feel like it's a slippery slope. And the rest of the country, and I would say to Baltimore, to Maryland, to the country, when you're seeing lawyers have concerns, you're seeing judges being arrested and having concerns, we all should be worried,
Well,
right? If they
you know,
come for lawyers, they'll come for you as well.
Son, everybody recognizes the connection between politics and economics, right? So why would the legal industry, why would lawyers be exempt? Why are people surprised or shocked that lawyers may capitulate to their so-called legal principles for fear of the economic consequences? I mean, lawyers, the law business isn't it like any other business? Aren't you in it to make money? And therefore, don't you respond? Don't we respond in the same way as any other business would be that's doing business with the government? I mean, look at Elon Musk. He's not from a legal profession, but certainly the wealth and the opportunities and contracts of his businesses, SpaceX, Starlink, and even Tesla, were advertised on the White House lawn. Even Tesla, I mean, he's done very well under the Trump administration as a supporter. I mean, the dollar value of his contract and so forth. So what people don't understand is that the notion of absolutes doesn't really exist. And I think I'm going to switch topics, the horses, just a little bit. I know we want to get to the Department of Education and the devastating consequences that its dismantling may have on the local public education systems. But I want to talk about this issue of immigration and the expansive approach that Trump has taken. And I want to talk about how this issue was treated even under prior administrations, particularly the Obama administration. People seem to be have adopted this so-called zero tolerance approach, which is to say that if you're in the country illegally, you're all in the same basket, and so you all ought to be subject to the same thoughts and processes relating to your right, if any, to remain in the country or be subject to deportation. But the fact of the matter is, our system is not zero tolerance. The Democratic Republic that we have here is based as much on the exception as it is the rule. It depends upon being administered by people who are honest, who have integrity, and who have a sense of compassion, and who are guided by hopefully a well-honed sense of right and wrong. None of those things seem to have very much to do with the kinds of decisions that Trump makes. So what about this issue? What about the people who say if you're in the country illegally, whether you've been here working and paying taxes and even serving in the military makes no difference. You're as subject to deportation as the person who's a MXX 13 or gang member or whatever. Do you think, Hassan, that there really should be some discretion there, and that we should that there should be a way for those people who admittedly came here illegally and are here illegally, but nevertheless have been proven to be contributors, positive and productive contributors? Should there be a pathway to citizenship for those people? Should there be a distinction in the activities of ICE in terms of identifying and taking actions to deport people? Should there be a distinction between those who are productive, who proven to be productive aliens, versus those who have records or have engaged in activities which are antisocial or illegal?
So two things. Before I jump into that, I want to go back to the point you made before you moved in and transition out. You asked a question about law. Lawyers are in business of the law, but it's still a business. And why should we expect anything different? Doctors are in a similar situation where they are a business, but they have a principle called do no harm. That's the principle for doctors. Well, lawyers have a principle as well, and their core principles are around loyalty and justice. Now, we have a bunch of model rules that the ABA has put forward, but the model rules and generally in term identify that we must operate with loyalty to our client and justice. I will argue that when firms are operating in a way that may hurt their current clients and the way that they know they're supporting an administration or supporting laws that may not be just and may not be legal, they're violating their core duty. They are doing harm, so to speak. So I do think that's an important distinction for lawyers. Again, lawyers make money, but the role of a lawyer isn't just to be a person to go make money. It's the idea that we are the administrators of the law. We are the law is the glue that holds the society together. It's the plumbing that makes sure things go smoothly. And when you start gucking it up, we all know what happens when your pipes get full and things back up. And I'm not gonna say what backs up, but things back up in the way that we didn't anticipate, and we need help supporting, and we can't fix ourselves. And I believe now, when you see lawyers turning away from their duty of loyalty and justice, we are going to see some things get gunked up fairly soon. Now, in terms of deportation, we've seen in this country, and quite candidly, there's been arguments about deportation our entire lives. This country has used immigration legally and illegally forever. Mitt Romney was arguing when he was in Utah, and he was doing Olympics, and he talked about how they needed and used immigrant work. These weren't legal immigrants; these were illegal immigration, illegal immigrants. So we've used immigrants. Now, I've said before, even now, Trump is going around and they're making a show of it. They're doing the Apprentice style deportation. They're making a show of deporting immigrants. From what I've seen, the number they're deporting is still lower than Biden's numbers, and Biden wasn't big on deportation. So they have a huge plane. We do a huge military plane, have 20 people in the back of a plane getting deported to Venezuela. That's not deportation in the major way, but what it does is it shows fear. It shows fear in the community. It gives people the impression that the U.S. is coming down hard. They've publicly deported Haitians who were here legally doing all kind of work, and they deported them because they were no longer given certain status. They are deporting, and even deporting people. They're deporting people to a jail in El Salvador, which I have grave concern for. And people being deported, and the jail, I haven't been able to figure it out. I've been doing research, and I can't find the details of how cruel and brutal the jail is. I've heard the jail be compared to a hellscape. I mean, it's a horrible, horrible place to be in. And they're deporting people from all over the world to El Salvador. People who don't live in El Salvador get deported to a jail in El Salvador. I don't know that that's the plan. But the question ideally is there discretion? There's always discretion, and that's the problem. There's discretion in that different administrations do it differently. Trump and ICE has discretion or have discretion. Think about this. If they really wanted to deport the most amount of people, they can easily walk into any hotel and say, hey, let me get a list of all the people who work here and run their socials through the system and see if they really who they say they are. They can go to restaurants writ large. I think they did this recently, but they can go to restaurants in any major city and line up. Let me see social. Let me see IDs. They can go to construction sites and say, hey, all the guys you have on site, let me see. Those are easy ways to get it. Every community. I went to a restaurant recently. I was in Jersey. I was at a restaurant. Everyone there spoke Spanish. I sat down. The menus were in Spanish. They had the small translation in English on the bottom of it. And by the way, the food was delicious. There's a small translation on the bottom for English. I sat down, they spoke Spanish. I'm like, oh, no Espanol, no Espanol, which means we have so many communities that are all Hispanic and all Spanish speaking residents, and a good portion of those people are illegal immigrants. And we know that. We know that, they know, the government knows that. The government hasn't actually come in and done mass arrests the way they could have done it. They're trying to make a point and intimidate people versus actually do the rule of law. So they're using discretion now. We don't like it. But they always, in the law, is always ground for discretion. The law can't be so immutable where it's hard and rigid because people will fall by the wayside. There are people who are here legally and who are contributing to society and maybe should stay. I know the immigration law. My thing is, and I'm very clear on this, change the law. We should have been changed the law. The immigration law, in that once a person overstays, they can adjust that status, doesn't even make sense. Hence, Elon Musk is still here, and he overstayed. From what I understand, he overstayed, and no one deported him. He's still here, and he went on to be a billionaire. So not only a billionaire, he wanted to be the richest man in the world. So they have you discretion depending on who it is. And typically, when you have immigrants from South America, whether El Salvador, Mexico, San Salvador, Venezuela, they have a different view on them than someone from South Africa or someone from Germany or from Britain.
How important is it, if at all, in terms of the exercise of discretion, that we ensure that the people in positions of authority to exercise that discretion come from backgrounds that are fully encompass the experiences of all the people? I mean, do we have to have people in authority all cut from the same cloth? Should they all be from the so-called major law firms? Certainly, that's not. Certainly, that there are bright people in firms, small firms such as yours or mine and others. That you don't have to have a 3,000 or 4,000 member law firm to have bright people. And certainly, all the lawyers in 3,000 and 4,000 person law firms aren't necessarily bright. Some of them are there by virtue of legacy and other causes and other reasons. So is it important that we have a quote diverse representation of people from various backgrounds? And if it is important, how is that affected by Trump's anti-DEI policies?
So now you ask a different question. Diversity. I'll be transparent for our viewers. I believe in diversity. The fact that I'm a black man doesn't indicate that the way people think it does, but I believe in diversity. I believe for a couple of different reasons. And diversity all kind of ways. I don't only mean diversity in race. And I mean, even in our community, I don't mind bringing people in our community from other places to give support. So I don't like the idea that in Baltimore we have a lot of all black schools. I don't like the idea that in certain areas you have all white schools when there's other people and other races around. There's an inherent value in differences. Culturally, I think a certain kind of way. My background has trained me and honed me to think a certain kind of way. Someone from mainland China will think different than I think, by nature where they're from. Someone from Puerto Rico will think different than I think. Someone from Wyoming will think different than I think. It doesn't mean any of us are wrong. We get the most value as a community and society when we have all those parts together to figure out almost a meritocracy of ideas. When you have more people with different ideas and different backgrounds, that's helpful. You and I are both attorneys, and we are highly educated. We have a bunch of degrees. That doesn't make us more intelligent or have a better understanding of things the way people think it does. A janitor could be just as intelligent as we are. Probably more intelligent. I meet people who identify as geniuses who can't make it through school. So the word intelligent is a misnomer. We shouldn't be looking for the most intelligent, although that's helpful, and that may percolate at the top. There should be a clear diversity because we need it. In order for things to go smoothly, we need the diversity. Even gender. It shouldn't be all male or all female. I'm not even a fan of all female things, except sports. That's a whole different conversation. But in terms of how things work, we need a female's ideas. They're different than male ideas. Even a woman who was raised the same way that a man is raised, with the same culture, same background, has different experiences in the world, so her view is different. That view is important. That view is helpful for all kinds of things. So although we have many people who want to have a very homogenous community, when they do homogenize the community, they typically are typically one gender. It's homogenous in that men typically run everything. So it not only homogenous in terms of race and ethnicity, but also in gender. That doesn't work.
Yeah, but in all fairness, the notion of the creation of some sort of societal balance, if you will, to be achieved through diversity, didn't originate with that something about that being wrong didn't really start with Trump. I mean, we can go back to the Supreme Court's decision in the Harvard case, Justice Roberts' opinion, Chief Justice Roberts' opinion, which basically said that to the extent that you want to use race as a factor, then it's got to be on a more solid foundation than simply the desire to achieve some sort of diversity overall. That somehow it's got to be specifically tied to some discernible, observable, or improvable act of actual discrimination. And we know, at least from my experience, is that most of the institutions that, whether in education, higher education, or otherwise, have enacted programs to achieve diversity, which used to be called multiculturalism, which used to be called an offspring of affirmative action, which used to be called by all these different names. But the commonality is none of them really admitted that they discriminated against anybody. They're always on an active and current basis. It always, to at most, was addressing some effects, lingering effects, if you will, of historical discrimination. And to that end, never really identified when enough was enough, which is also one of the subtitles to our program, Money, Power, and Politics. Enough is enough. So, following up on Chief Justice Roberts' opinion, how do we know when there is enough, quote, diversity? What does diversity really mean? Our opinion is, this is not a legal principle, by the way, so let me be candid. Diversity is when there's enough Black folk in the room that we can talk to one another without feeling, any kind of self-insecurity, but not enough to make white folk afraid of our presence. That's the balance. That's when you have achieved diversity. Now, but I don't offer that as a legal principle. But the fact is, diversity is an undefined term,